It is often said that space is silent, empty, a void between stars. But that silence is only the absence of sound, the absence of life. But what if the void is not empty? What if, in the shadow of the stars, there's something waiting, watching? November 14th, 1969. The Saturn V rocket carrying Apollo 12 thrusts into the heavens, a beacon of human ambition. Inside the spacecraft, 3 men embark on a journey to the moon. Astronauts Charles Pete Conrad, Alan L. Bean, and Richard F. Gordon. They were chosen for their skill, their calm under pressure. They were ready. Or so they thought. The goal of Apollo 12 was straightforward: land near Surveyor 3, a robotic spacecraft that had landed 2 years earlier. Retrieve samples. Return safely. A simple mission. A routine mission. But this was not to be a routine journey. From the moment they left Earth's atmosphere, something unseen began to reach toward them. The journey was meant to be uneventful. As the spacecraft cruised through the dark expanse of space, the crew focused on their tasks. But even in the quiet of the capsule, there was a subtle feeling, something out of place. A creeping sense that not everything was as it should be. It began subtly. The first signs were so faint that they could have been easily dismissed. A flicker of static, a blip on the telemetry, an instrument that suddenly lost power. But they were anomalies that didn't quite fit the pattern. Still, the crew remained professional, following protocol, ignoring the discomforting feeling that was beginning to grow in their minds. As Apollo 12 entered the moon's orbit, a sense of calm returned. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The descent to the lunar surface began. The lunar module descended with precision, closer and closer to the target, Surveyor 3. But something was wrong. At 3:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Apollo 12 touched down on the moon. But as the lunar module's engines fired to slow their descent, a violent storm on Earth, thousands of miles away, reached into the spacecraft systems. It wasn't just any storm. It was a lightning storm, one that would leave its mark on the mission. While the crew were descending to the surface of the moon, a violent storm tore through the skies above Earth. But the storm didn't stay below. Somehow, the lightning strikes began to affect Apollo 12's electronics. A cascade of electrical anomalies followed. Systems failed. Communications went down. And for a brief moment, the astronauts lost contact with mission control. Was it a mere coincidence? A freak occurrence? Or was something else at play? Conrad and Bean stepped out onto the surface, the weight of history upon them. Surveyor 3 stood silent in the distance, its metallic surface now pocked and weathered by 2 years of lunar exposure. But as they moved toward it, a new sense of unease settled in. The glitches in their instruments continued. The communication system sputtered, crackling with strange bursts of static. The astronauts couldn't explain it, but they felt it. An unnatural tension, a presence in the air. The moon, so silent, now felt unnervingly alive. Conrad looked around, trying to shake the feeling. They were not alone. Something, somewhere, was watching them, or perhaps waiting for them. The instruments malfunctioned again, not in random bursts, but in calculated, repeated patterns, as if something intelligent was testing their systems. Mission Control, oblivious to the astronauts' growing unease, was watching the data streams closely. But the anomalies were becoming impossible to ignore. The signals from the lunar module began to take on an unnatural rhythm. The fluctuations, the strange feedback loops, they didn't match any known patterns. Engineers at Mission Control couldn't explain what was happening. Was it a fault in the equipment? An unrecorded atmospheric anomaly? Or was there something else, something foreign, influencing the mission? As the astronauts worked, they continued to experience oddities. Their tools malfunctioned intermittently, sometimes for no reason. Data transmission slowed, then accelerated with strange bursts of static. Each time the astronauts tried to send a message back to Earth, it was distorted, as if the moon itself was pressing down on their communications. The astronauts pressed on with their work, knowing that their primary mission was to gather samples and return. But the atmosphere of the moon felt different now. It wasn't just the eerie silence. It was the feeling that something wasn't right. Something was hidden beneath the surface of the mission. It was at this moment, as they stood on the surface of the moon, that they might have realized they were not alone. The disturbances were not random. They were controlled. It was almost as if something was orchestrating their every move. Was it just a malfunction of the instruments? Or was there something else, something older, perhaps even alien, operating on the moon? A hidden intelligence, watching the crew from the shadowed side of the lunar surface? Or was it something deeper, embedded in the moon's history, waiting to be uncovered? The crew returned to lunar orbit, leaving the moon's surface behind. They had completed their mission, but the anomalies didn't disappear. The systems continued to malfunction as they ascended into space. The strange interference, a pattern now, had followed them, back to Earth, back to the safety of their home planet. Yet, the questions lingered. The mission was considered a success. The astronauts returned home as heroes, their achievements celebrated. But as time passed, the true nature of Apollo 12's encounter with the moon was buried, classified, obscured by official reports. What happened on that lonely, desolate world remained a mystery, sealed away for over 30 years. In 1999, a long-forgotten archive was rediscovered, buried deep within NASA's vaults. It contained transcripts, logs, and data from the mission, the unedited versions. What it revealed was shocking. The disturbances? They were not random glitches. They were a pattern, and the origin of those signals was not from Earth. It came from the far side of the moon. The truth about Apollo 12 was not what we were told. The mission was never simply about landing on the moon. It was about what they found there, and what they brought back remains locked away, still waiting for someone brave enough to confront it.